episode is sponsored by Raise Tech, end-to-end IT solutions for your business growth.
So let's kick it off. Let's try it out, see how it goes. Our first debate session of today. Our topic is stable versus fluid teams. And basically, how does it go? We'll try to use somewhat of a formal debate format here. It means that I will give you some time to prepare arguments for the green side and for the red side. While preparing the arguments, then you will have a minute to present your argument or arguments to the other group. The other group will have time to react on counter-argue with what you've just said. Then they will have time to present their own arguments, and we'll do some back and forth like that to see whether, what comes out of it, basically. So this is how it goes. I will be the one in charge of making sure we stay to the format as much as possible. But again, hey, it's an unconference. We're also very free. And if anyone from the audience wants to add something up, just raise your hand. We can definitely pitch your arguments here as well. So on the right side, on the green chairs, we have a group that are vouching very much for the stable teams. What are stable teams? Basically, the notion says we form them and they coexist for a pretty long amount of time so that they work together, they know each other, they have practices and everything. On my left side, we have red team that are arguing today for fluid teams, which basically means going for the notion that teams need to be, the member of the teams need to change constantly or pretty often. They need to focus on just solving a problem and then moving around and so on. But maybe you know more about it. Maybe you will come up with even more arguments. Stable or fluid. So I will start on, you can have your notes here if you wish. I will start on giving the groups 2 minutes to prepare your first arguments, and then you will have time to present them. So you can discuss with each other and agree on your first arguments now. Okay, so time for the first round of preparations is done. As one of my daughter's favorite characters of one of the kids TV shows says, green means go, so we'll start with the green team. So whomever will be the one presenting your arguments now, if it's one of you, just pick up the mic and just present the arguments for the group. Why you think stable teams are better than fluid teams?
And I hope everyone can hear me. So yeah, we discussed that when you are stable and you don't need to throw in new people and be stable for a while. Like you can go dynamically, naturally through all these stages of team performing, and you accelerate because you know each other better and you don't need to invest additional time to understand each other when you need to achieve common goal, and you then have opportunity to avoid stepping back and reviewing again ground rules that you used to be, and slowing down delivery that usually happens when additional team members came, or it's formed from scratch, because if you go through all these stages, you get stuck somewhere, or you're just constantly going back and you need again to reach performing stage.
So this was the argument of the group for now, for today. Hope you listened in, because now you have 30 seconds to react or to counter-argue on the argument before presenting your own arguments.
So the thing that I've heard, you mentioned that teams could grow and go naturally through their performing stages, but at the same time, have you considered the factor that people are leaving the teams, finding a new job, and the other ones are joining, so that natural growth through the performance stages is all the time impacted, and that makes a bit of an effort and challenge to get back on that performing stage. That's the counter-argument, what I'm thinking, that having these stable teams, it's not always easy, because there are unpredicted environment changes and then people jumping in, jumping out anyways.
But now you have your minute to present your arguments that you talked about to the other group, and you listen in so you can respond and counter-argue.
Yes, so hi, I'm Yuri. I'm actually not an agile coach, I'm an engineering manager. So I will talk as a former software developer, and the reality that we always face is that nothing is stable. Things change, requirements change, people change. In Berlin, where I worked for the last 7 or 8 years, the average tenure of a software developer has been 1 year. So it's naturally not really possible to have a stable team if somebody leaves, somebody joins because they got a better offer, because they moved, because of many reasons. So what you can do is then just embrace this reality and build a framework which allows people to move around, because maybe then you will retain them, maybe also because they will share knowledge. Stable teams have the side effect of knowledge silo, like they work on their own topic for a while and nobody else now knows about it because they are the
10
experts.
seconds.
They will fix everything. So fluid teams also enables us to grow people and refresh them and avoid knowledge silos. And I think we're done.
Thank you, red team. Anything to respond by the green team?
Work in smaller iterations, then you have a greater chance to have stable teams. Maybe your iteration length is too long, so you allow for that variability, which is natural, people coming and going. But yeah, cut down your sprint length, work in shorter iterations.
And my response to the previous was about people leaving teams, you mentioned, yeah? So I would like to ask what's behind that actually, why people are leaving teams. And you mentioned that you observed people rotating, leaving all the time. So are we talking about the right problem here? Yeah. Why is that happening?
We'll start now with the green team that still vouches for stable teams. So, what are your next arguments to present?
So first of all, like, we hope we are not like in the battle here, and we believe that in both sides we can find pros and cons, and balance is the best. And we don't know what's the time length here, like for how long we say it's stable and how often it should change. But for example, in terms of knowledge, they mentioned silos in knowledge, but there are many ways how to get knowledge in the team, even if it's stable for a longer time. So we don't see it as a problem. And what else we can add?
We briefly discussed the topic of two stable teams. For example, if an organization is out of business and it's monopoly case or something like that, yeah, where people work for a long time together, then it's too stable, and we are not talking about those stable teams where people have lost a sense maybe of some realities about that there's no competition, they don't need to innovate and change. So we're not about that stable and that stability. Yeah. Just in defense of our.
Yeah, and we still need to find. We still need to find like best sides of this stability. Like, we need to present something from stability, and we see these positive sides, but we don't see that sometimes if change happens that it's something wrong. Yeah. And it depends what stability is. Like, is it 1 week or is it one project?
So, exactly, yeah.
What about the climate of leadership and what you were talking about with like creating conditions for encouraging stability or stickiness in your company so people aren't leaving or something like that? And you can choose when people join which teams they might join to try to retain a sense of sameness, if that's your goal.
Organizational culture, in a way.
Organizational culture.
A place to be, a place people want to work.
Anything you have to comment or present your arguments?
I have one thing that popped out in my mind regarding people living different things. That's true. We actually not always control it. It might be for the better, for the good, for the worst. But creating stable and or too stable teams or not working deliberately on changing something in the teams can create this situation when people becoming too rigid. It's hard to introduce any change. It's hard to introduce new ideas because, we are the team. We are working the way we do it. And as colleague mentioned, like pickles in a jar. So you add in something new, and it's immediately becoming the same pickle, and it's hard to change. So fluid teams, and it's of course debatable thing to what extent can create this. It's all about create this motion of interchangeable knowledge, bringing in new stuff like the latest thing that happened, large language models, ChatGPT, all the buzz about it, but even in the same company, different teams will explore it differently. Like, wow, that's the thing, let's move with it, let's experiment, or yeah, just another hype, let's not look at it, let's do our business as usual.
So just to add on top of what colleague said and what I've heard from this group, it's obvious that we need to keep a balance somehow, and we need to find the best ways, what fits us. Just usually what I've noticed that the ones that are more on the side having stable teams and that stability gets into the trap that they don't understand that it's not everything is stable, and we need to be able to adapt and adjust to the environment that we are in. And we discussed as well that some of the products that we're developing requires different effort, and we might raise different goals to further improve that product. It requires different effort, different knowledge, and by having a chance to have that fluidity, we can, or the team can create itself around that goal to be achieved, rather than having one stable, the same team that consists of, I don't know, 3 to 5 developers to whatever to deliver that stuff. It might need much more or even less people. And then we have that flexibility.
Okay, closing arguments for our discussion. Green team, anything to add to finalize?
If I may, yeah. So responding to Alexei's answer to this, to the next round of arguments. So I think that we need to remember one thing, that there are no teams existing in a vacuum. Yeah? All teams are part of some bigger organization, and automatically means that somebody is recruiting those people, getting those people onboarding, and somehow allowing or assigning to teams, or allowing to self-select teams. So it's about leadership, what I want to say. It's at the end of the day, it's about the leadership. So if we say that we don't control something, or we can't control everything, well, yes and no, because in complex systems, it's hard to control all the parameters, but there are things very well known from management, which are not new, like how to work with people, and think this leadership's responsibility to be able to control at least the basic structural and team forming decisions. How do we decide to do this in this our company? And I think if we lose that control, then it's a different problem. Yeah.
It all boils down to leadership.
I would like to leave this podcast with this thought.
Your closing statements.
Not sure what was the argument about. I understand the idea, but against what it was proposed. And I in general agree that that leadership, management, whoever runs the show, decides on the practices, the structure, and also is responsible for good or bad outcomes. And in the terms of the teams, I guess finding, as colleagues mentioned, the balance between stable and fluid is essential. And moreover, not every employee will be happy with switching teams. Some create bonding with colleagues, friendship, and it's easier for them to work. And moving to another team with good manager even creates stress and unnecessary lost productivity. So be wise while running experiments on people.
As with a lot of practices, we can conclude that it comes down to the situation, the organization, the culture you have. So basically the choice comes there, and it could even be a different ways of organizing the teams in one company itself, right? So, okay, anyone from the audience would like to add something, something you're taking out, or some final point to add? Yes.
So that's
Yeah, sorry to be nagging. I would like, I find it helpful to think in terms of team boundaries as having permanence and permeability. So, for example, an airline crew stays together. It's very hard to change the team mid-flight, but they exist for only a few hours, maybe a day. That's it. But they're a stable team throughout the duration of that flight. The opposite would be a 24-hour service desk, for example. They are permanent, but people move in and out all the time. So high permeability, long permanence. You can also have both. That would be the construction crew that worked on my house last year. I was making coffee for different people every day, and it was only for a week or two. So short duration and high permeability. Those are three different options, and each one is a decent option in a certain context. And then you have stable teams, long permeability, and strict permeability and long duration. Those are four options, and yeah, then the conclusion is pick whatever you want, and you can combine them. That's the beauty of it, with teams of teams constructions. So there's so many possibilities. It's like Lego.
Yeah, that's a good summary.
Yes. So thank you for our debates participants. Thank you everyone for joining.